Adrian Newey has built some of the most dominant cars in Formula One history. Championship machines. Revolutionary designs. Cars that changed the sport. But what just happened with Aston Martin's AMR26 after the Australian Grand Prix shocked even the people inside the project? Because the Newey-Honda partnership was supposed to arrive in 2026 as a game-changing force. Instead, the first race of the season revealed something very different. Serious reliability concerns. Vibrations from the new Honda power unit. And a car that the team is still trying to understand lap by lap. Now, as the championship moved to the Chinese Grand Prix, the situation became even more surprising. Because while other teams are bringing aggressive upgrades, Aston Martin is arriving in survival mode. No massive performance package. No dramatic aerodynamic breakthrough. Just one mission. Keep the car alive long enough to finish the race. And the most shocking part is that Fernando Alonso himself admitted he is not even completely sure the car will make it to the checkered flag. Which raises a massive question for the entire Formula One paddock. How did one of the most ambitious technical projects in the sport suddenly turn into one of the biggest early season struggles? To understand that, we need to go back to what really happened during the Australian Grand Prix, because the signs were already there. But the warning signs for Aston Martin actually started appearing long before the Chinese Grand Prix. They were already visible during the opening weekend of the season in Australia. On paper, the AMR26 was supposed to represent a completely new chapter for the team. A revolutionary concept. A very aggressive aerodynamic philosophy. And, most importantly, the beginning of the Aston Martin and Honda partnership built around the new 2026 regulations. But when the cars finally arrived in Melbourne, reality looked very different. Instead of a stable platform ready to fight at the front, the team arrived with a car that was still evolving almost every hour. During the Australian Grand Prix weekend, Aston Martin introduced a remarkable number of changes. A new front wing. Revised end plates. A modified nose. Updated side pods. Changes to the engine cover. A different diffuser. And even adjustments to the rear wing. 7 separate components modified in a single race weekend. That is the kind of development pace you normally see during winter testing, not during the first race of the season. And that alone revealed something important. The AMR26 was still far from fully understood. But the most serious concern did not come from the aerodynamic package. It came from the power unit. Very early in the weekend, engineers started noticing unusual vibrations coming from the Honda engine. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make the team cautious. Because in Formula One, vibrations inside a brand new power unit can become a nightmare if they are not controlled quickly. They affect sensors. They affect electronics. They can even damage internal components over longer distances. And with the limited supply of spare parts available at the start of the season, Aston Martin could not afford to take unnecessary risks. That is why the entire strategy of the weekend slowly shifted. Instead of pushing the car to its limits, the team began treating the race almost like an extended test session. Every lap became valuable data. Every run was carefully monitored. Engine modes were adjusted. Parameters were constantly checked. At one point during the race weekend, the situation became so delicate that the team made a decision that surprised many observers. Fernando Alonso was instructed to retire the car early. Not because of a crash. Not because of a dramatic failure. But simply to protect the machinery. Points were already out of reach. Preserving critical components became the priority. It was a very unusual moment for a team that had entered the season with so much expectation surrounding its project. And it also revealed just how fragile the early phase of the Newey-Honda partnership really is. Because the AMR26 might have enormous potential on paper. But until the reliability questions are solved, that potential cannot be fully explored. And that is exactly why the next race of the season, the Chinese Grand Prix, became such a critical moment for the team. Not because Aston Martin expected to fight for the podium, but because they needed answers. Answers about the power unit. answers about the vibrations, and answers about whether the AMR26 could finally complete a full race distance without problems. But as the paddock moved from Australia to China, the message coming out of Aston Martin became even more surprising. Because normally, after a difficult opening race, teams arrive at the next Grand Prix with a clear response. New parts, new aerodynamic tweaks, small upgrades designed to stabilize the car. But this time, that was not the case. For the Chinese Grand Prix, Aston Martin did not bring a major upgrade package at all. No big aerodynamic changes. No dramatic performance step. Instead, the team arrived in Shanghai focused on something much more basic: survival. According to multiple reports from inside the paddock, there simply was not enough time to produce a new performance package between Australia and China. The priority had to remain on understanding the car and protecting the power unit. Fernando Alonso was unusually direct about the situation. Before the race weekend even began, he admitted that the team was not arriving in China expecting a completely different scenario from Melbourne. In fact, he suggested that the goal might once again be experimentation rather than pure performance. Testing new configurations, adjusting parameters, trying to unlock the real behavior of the AMR26. And perhaps the most striking part of his comments came when he admitted that finishing the race was not guaranteed. That is an extraordinary statement for a Formula One driver, especially one with Alonso's experience. But it highlights the delicate situation surrounding the new Honda power unit. Honda engineers remain optimistic that the countermeasures introduced between Bahrain testing and the Australian Grand Prix have already improved the vibration problems significantly. They believe the engine should now be capable of completing a full race distance. But Alonso himself has been more cautious. Because in Formula One, confidence is not built through simulations. It is built through laps. Real race distance. And until the AMR26 proves it can run reliably for an entire Grand Prix, the team cannot afford to push the car to its true performance limit. That is why the Chinese Grand Prix became something closer to another extended test session. Engine modes were carefully managed. Operational procedures were adjusted. Even pit stops were used as opportunities to verify parameters and collect additional data. Lance Stroll described the entire weekend in similar terms. For him, Australia had already felt like a learning exercise. And China would continue that same process. Understanding the car. Understanding the power unit. Understanding how the entire Newey Honda concept behaves under race conditions. Because the truth is that the AMR26 still carries enormous long-term potential. The packaging of the car is extremely aggressive. The Honda power unit is designed around a compact architecture. The aerodynamic philosophy aims to maximize efficiency under the new hybrid rules. On paper, it could become one of the most advanced projects on the grid. But right now, that potential is still locked behind reliability issues. And that is why the real target for Aston Martin may not even be China. Inside the team, attention is already turning toward the next critical race: Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix. That is where Honda expects to bring a larger supply of spare components, additional battery packs, and potentially the first real wave of development parts. Only then will the team feel confident enough to truly push the car. Only then will Alonso and Stroll be able to explore the real limits of the AMR26. Until that moment arrives, every race is part of the learning process. Every lap is data. And every kilometer brings Aston Martin one step closer to unlocking the true potential of the Newey Honda project.